Thank you for joining this webinar. Today's topic is past outage assessment. Being able to prevent past outages with a continuous network assessment, and it's powered by NextGen, which is in NetBrain NextGen. The mantra we have here is simple and powerful. So you're really going to see how we're doing this here in this demo. So before we dive into NetBrain, let's kind of do a quick refresher. So NetBrain, as we all know, the foundation of NetBrain is the discovery of the hybrid network. And with that information, we're able to build no-code network automation that really falls within three different workflows. The troubleshooting workflow, which comes down to for any time we have an incident, we can have a summarized dashboard that shows the different, collaboration and different diagnoses that have taken place during that troubleshooting process and during the course of troubleshooting this incident. And you have something you can look back onto for root cause analysis. And if anyone needs to be brought in, they have a kind of a one-stop shop to understand what's gone on with the incident. The second one is the continuous assessment workflow. This is where we're going to be focusing on today. And really what it comes down to is for any rule, policy, past outage that has occurred on the network, you can have it as a network-wide continuous assessment. So even if something has happened in one place, we can actually now, use NetBrain to check for this, these rules, verify and validate these policies network-wide. And the third workflow is the change workflow. So for each change, we can have, a dashboard that has automations that are running before, during, and after the change, right? And this is all in order to protect the change. We understand before the change what impacts there could be. During the change, we validate if any impacts actually happened or are occurring, while also, of course, validating that the change went into place, right? And then after the change, we're going to continuously protect, right? So any of those checks that we want to now make a continuous assessment, we're able to do that as well. But let's dive in now to our actual topic for this webinar, right? And get a little more specific. So, and then we'll actually show what this looks like in the NetBrain platform. So this is a past outages assessment, right? The idea here is, are known problems happening again, right? You had an outage on the network before, right? Maybe it was a QoS oversubscription. A failover didn't work as planned, right? You thought it was going to the secondary link, but there was a misconfiguration in routing that prevented that from happening. Any of these different problems that you've had that could be, your critical problems, that are happening in one part of the network, right, on one application, on one WAN link, could they happen somewhere else in the network? The answer is yes, right? Of course, there's always a chance, as much as we try to be preventive and configure these properly, many changes can be happening on the network. Things can happen where something you think is working is no longer working. Well, what we can do with NetBrain is when we solve this outage for one part of the network, we can replicate the automation network-wide. So any instances where we have a WAN link, any applications that have QoS, as examples, we can actually now assess those continuously, not just for the one application that had the problem, but network-wide. So we're able to apply that across the whole network and monitor those results continuously. And that's really, the goal here. What's so great is now we can make sure that not only is that one outage not going to happen again, we're not going to get bit in the future on a different part of the network as well. So we're proactively now going to check for these problems that we've seen before across the whole network. So let's go ahead and dive into a quick demo. So here you can see my past outage assessment dashboard, and this is something that I'm running daily, but of course we can run this hourly, every, even more often, right? Hourly, every couple hours, as frequent as we want based on the criticality of the issue. And you can see here the way that this is divided to, help for understanding is by when, that past outage occurred. So this is for Q1 of 2023. We had an issue with application one, and we also noticed there was QoS oversubscription, right, on devices. In Q2 it was a bad cable problem and interface problems, but we haven't seen any in the last 30 days. Um, and then in Q3 we have failover, right? WAN link route leakage, HSRP failover, right? So all of these kind of issues that we've seen before, they're not now just looking on the one part of the network where they happened. It's network wide. So any device that is part of a WAN link, for example, here is being assessed for that WAN route leakage, and we could even dive in here and understand um, what the problems are. In this case, there was no problem here. I could still go down to a map if I wanted to from the dashboard, which is really nice, right? I do have that ability to drill in. But at a glance here, I can see if any past outages are, occurring again, right? Here we can see, for bad cable that we actually did find some problems. Now we can see here, this was very recently, and it's saying that there's some errors found on Ethernet 02 that are increasing. Input errors have increased. You can see the numbers there. So um, that's where this error is coming from. And again, I could come in here, I could view the map, and I could start getting an understanding of what that is, right? So with NetBrains visibility, so this is going to tell me that um, there's errors found on tunnel 0, right? Uh, some sort of problem here. It's saying there's an output drops have increased by 2 on tunnel 0. So you can see we drew out that link, which is between Boston and New York. QoS oversubscription detected on Ethernet 02, which is going to our WAN connectivity, right? So we can see that as well. And then Ethernet 02 also had input errors increasing. So we can see all those interfaces, and you see we've drawn some of the connected neighbors here to just to validate all those devices, right? All these are all WAN devices, so we're that are part of our application. So we validated all of them. We can see from this device when we found problems, we also can see those links right on the map to effectively troubleshoot and visualize, exactly what's going on. So, if there's a bad link here, well, it's this tunnel. That's the tunnel between Boston and New York. So we know we have to kind of take a look at that tunnel, and we have more context now around that rather than just this interface on this device is having a problem. We very quickly now understand, okay, what is it connected to? What is its significance? And then we could run, additional checks from right here on top of the map. If we go back to our dashboard to show you some other examples, if we look at the QoS oversubscription, same idea here. Um, this Boston router 2 has a QoS problem. And, instead of going to the map, maybe I just want to see what the check was. I can actually dive onto the device and understand what the logic is being looked at. So we can see the database application class value is 15,000, which is higher than the bandwidth available on the interface. Therefore, there's an oversubscription, right? And we can see here looking at the interface in this case, but this automation is actually doing some logic in the back to look at those other values as well. We can see here, right, show policy map interface. So it's going to pull that information from here for the police CIR, and we're able to do those comparisons. So we can very quickly do these checks as often as we want, and then just be alerted whenever we find a problem, whether it's referencing this dashboard. Of course, if we want to be alerted more frequently, it's we're going to be able to use a webhook to open a ticket. We could send an email, things like that, right? You could send a message in a Teams chat if you wanted to for these problems, right? Webhooks are very powerful in that way. So you have a lot of options here of how you want to address these past outages, and the great part of this is these automations are from your automation library. So what I mean is this isn't just stuff that NetBrains is going to give you based on, common issues that are seen in multiple networks. This is something that you can build for your own network, meaning the common issues that you see in your network, those outages that you've had before, you're building these automations to check for those. Now, maybe NetBrain has some reference automations that you can use, but it's going to really be a combination of what's provided by NetBrain and what you're actually creating with no code to enforce and verify that past outage causes are not causing problems again on the network. So that's really kind of an overview of how NetBrain handles past outages. There is a Q&A box. If you do have questions, you can ask them there. So I'll give a few moments to see if anyone has any questions, and I can definitely answer those for you. Just give it another minute. Just want to make sure that, oh, looks like we have one. Is this functionality exclusive to NetBrain Next Gen? Yeah, so this functionality, it really depends how you want to do it, but I would say that the answer to that question is yes. Um, the summary dashboards, the dashboards that you're seeing on the screen, were released in our newest release, 11.1b. So you would need to upgrade to that version to be able to leverage the dashboards. However, in previous versions, you would still be able to build the automations and say run it on top of a map like you see here. Of course, what I would say the best way to do it to be able to view the results of an assessment that you're running outside of a map is you'd want these dashboards. So I'll just give another few moments if there are any other questions. Is this dashboard a template? So these summary dashboards are not templates. Um, this is um, this is one that we've created, but I believe if you talk with your customer support engineer or customer support manager, we can probably definitely involve services to help build this dashboard. This uh, it is one that we can definitely assist in building, but really these are built because they're not templatized just in the product. They are built. Um, in this case, and these charts, by the way, come from even more detailed dashboards in the back end, and it's just really summarizing results. So for example, if I look at uh, bad cable, um, there's actually much more detailed dashboards in NetBrain that are showing this in the back. So here's what it's showing, at each point in time. Um, and then you can see the peak when it finds a problem, and then it goes down. You see it peaked again and found a problem. Um, so these results are really good, but they are really detailed. But to have a nice at a glance view is where you get the summarized dashboard. But these do have to be built based on uh, results and based on automations, of course. Okay, just gonna give it another few seconds for questions. Had a couple good ones so far. So, is there an execution limit for running the automation? Um, so if you have our NetBrains preventive automation module, the answer is no. There is no execution limit. It'll run if you have it a schedule, let's say for example, like we have it here daily and it's daily at 6 p.m. It'll run daily at 6 p.m. until you tell NetBrain to stop doing it. If you don't have the PA module, you can schedule automations from the map uh, from here. Um, and that limit would be 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, you'd have to just have it going again. Um, but from a map is not network wide. The network wide automations, uh, there is no limit. Is NetBrain using any type of machine learning? Um, at the moment, no. There is no machine learning in NetBrain. It's all based on your knowledge, right? You're codifying your knowledge and then allowing it to one be accessible by other team members, but also you're allowing NetBrain to then use that knowledge to perform these kind of continuous assessments, be able to automatically troubleshoot, right? Once you have it automated. Am I correct in understanding that the operator determines whether a new failure is the same one that has occurred in the past? Um, so yeah, so what NetBrain is doing, the logic in the automation is going to be looking for if that same failure is occurring again. So when you see a red, that means that depending on your logic, some or all of the conditions that occurred in that outage before are happening again. Um, and NetBrain is just going to tell you, exactly what it found. So in this case, it's finding a QoS oversubscription on this device. That might not have been the same device that had an issue before, but now we're seeing that actually on this part of the network, there seems to be an issue. Um, but yes, the operator does have, we would alert you to it, right? Like I mentioned, you can open a ticket, you can send an email, you can see it in the dashboard, and you can just read those alerts and see what NetBrain is exactly finding. And you'll see, oh, it's finding that, there was a change, right? Or the oversubscription, and you can resolve those problems much faster. So NetBrain is going to do a lot of the work in reducing the time it takes to find the problem. The operator or engineer is the one that's going to go in and look at that output and, make the resolution. Yes, this does fall under the assessment workflow because these automations are going to be running continuously regardless of if an issue is actually actively occurring on the network, right? This is just going to be running all the time. So you might come into times like you see here where everything is green. You might come back, refresh this, from the last 7 days, and there is a red, right? Or you would get alerted to something that's red and you'd see it here more than likely. Um, okay. Okay, so I'm seeing no more questions. So we'll go ahead and wrap this webinar up here. Thank you guys so much for attending, um, and then asking some great questions.